Bonjour, Kinamagi and Ireland Indigenous, and welcome to today's math enrichment lesson. Today's lesson, imperial and metric units of length. I'm going to start out with a tool, and you may see that this is a ruler. Rulers are pretty common things you might see around your classroom, and it has a number of measurements on it. Depending on if it's a imperial, you're looking at inches, and this whole thing together is a foot, or using metric, those are two different systems. I have here a ruler, and you can see on the imperial side, that's ours, we have numbers from 0 to 12. Those are inches and feet. 12 inches equals 1 foot. If I put 3 of these 1 foot rulers together, I have a yard. And we'll talk about those in a second. On the metric side, you'll see that every 10, we have another number. So there's 10 here, and then we get to 1. So 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. And then this would actually, if you've seen a meter stick, we'll talk about how many are there in just a second. So let's go to my whiteboard. First, on the imperial side, there are 12 inches in a foot. Those are those numbers 1 to 12 on your ruler. There are 3 feet in a yard. So if you're watching football, American football, 10 yards is the first down, that's 30 feet. We can figure out the number of inches or number of feet by multiplying or dividing by 12. I'll put that inches divided by 12. Inches equal feet times 12. Make this just a little wider for us. 3 feet in a yard. So your multiplication, a yard is equal to feet divided by 3. Feet equal yard times 3. There are 5,280 feet in a mile. So you would figure out mile would equal feet divided by 5,280. Feet would equal miles, I would say, times 5,280. So you can see that in our imperial system, it's rather weird. We're measuring by and multiplying and dividing by things like 12 and 3 and 5,280. And if I was going yards to a mile, 1,760. There's not a lot of ease in our system. So you almost have to memorize what you're going to do here. So if I were to ask you how many feet in 2 miles, you would have to multiply 5,280 times 3. So it's a 0, a 4, carry my 2, 6 plus the 2 is 8, 15,840 feet. If I want to know how many inches in 2 feet or 3 feet, I'd go 12 times 3, which is 36. Notice there are no exponents because length is a one-dimensional measurement. All right, so I'm going to clear and let's talk about the metric. Metric is a lot easier. We have 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. So if I want to know the number of millimeters, it's equal to centimeters times 10. Centimeters, it'll be equal to millimeters divided by 10. Now, if I want to know how many centimeters, well, 1 meter, and that's just an M, is equal to 100 centimeters. So a centimeter is equal to meters divided by 100. Meter equal, centimeters is equal to meters times 100. My apologies on the error. And the meter is equal divided by 100. Everything we go in here is based on some measurement of 10. So we know that a meter is your base. A millimeter is 1,000th of a meter. A centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. A meter, well, that's just 1 meter. There's also a kilometer, which is km. You may see this on a car. And that is 1,000 meters. So we have prefixes. Milli is 1,000. Centi equals 100. And you might catch like there's 100 years in a century, 100 cents in a dollar. There's 1,000 years in a millennia. And kilo is also 1,000. But usually when we're using it, it means 1,000 meters or 1,000 grams. You'll see some of these measurements in a future lesson. So if I told you that I had 3 kilometers and you want to know how many meters, I would take my 3 kilometers times 1,000 and have immediately 3,000 meters. If I was going kilometers to millimeters, I could figure out what I need to multiply, which power of 10. Everything is by a power of 10. Metric is a lot easier than our standard units. Unfortunately, we are a nation that tends to use our imperial units. If you want to use metric on a regular basis, you're going to have to take that trek across the Canadian border. But you'll also notice that we use a lot more metric in our science classes than you might otherwise. It's a good system to know both. And as you get accustomed to them, you might be able to say, okay, well, 6/10 of a mile is a kilometer. And you'll start being able to make those exchanges in your head right pretty easily. You may not be there yet. At this point, I'm going to ask you to return to the Google Classroom to complete the questions that are there, or if you're in the physical classroom, the papers will be available to you. If you have any questions, please reach out. If you're still kind of stuck, my advice first is to ask a neighbor, then ask me. And you may even want to, if you're at home, look at Khan Academy as an excellent resource. Have a minogijigad, minwa,